Hello, this is Ted Ogoff from Adrenaline, and here's Siobhan Connor, BJJ Blue Belt. Today we're running through the 4 arm bars that everybody should know if you're in Jiu-Jitsu. So we're going to do 2 from the mount and 2 from the guard. So we'll start from the mount first. I'm just going this way, touch. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is if the person covers up. So this is more likely, obviously, if you're striking, the person covers up to protect themselves. What we're going to do is, and of course that's if you're doing MMA or something like that, or defending yourself. In Jiu-Jitsu there's no striking, obviously, so keeping that in mind. So if the person covers up, they're trying to protect their neck from being choked and all the rest of it. From here I'm going to collapse their structure by putting one hand on the wrist, one hand on the elbow. I drop that structure to the floor. My elbow now goes beside her neck. I'm trying to get her elbow here 90 degrees at the elbow, 90 degrees at the shoulder. From here I'm going to tuck this elbow into her neck. Left hand goes underneath. I grab my own wrist. I want to try and tuck my head in to keep myself protected. It's always a good habit. If you're defending yourself and she's trying to strike you in the head, you'll keep your head out of the way. It's also a good habit just for general skills anyway. So from here I want to control the wrist. From here I lift the elbow up and I try to slide her wrist towards my feet until we get the tap. So again, making sure that my limbs are locked. If my arms are bent, I'm going to be using more bicep and tricep strength to get the arm on the floor. So I keep my arms locked. I just use my weight to get that arm to the floor. This one tucks in nice and tight to the neck. Hand underneath, I lift the elbow and then I slide her hand towards my feet until we get the tap. Same on the other side. So we push, tuck, reach under, catch my own wrist, lift and slide. Okay, the next arm lock we're going to do is if the arm is outstretched. So this is not a common reaction for people who can grapple. So if you get someone who's done Jiu-Jitsu for 6 to 12 months, most people are not going to do this. But a lay person who doesn't know anything about wrestling, a lot of times will try to strong arm you off. So that's where this arm lock works perfect. In this kind of configuration, there's other ways you can set it up where you can get the arm straight from here without the person extending their arm. But that's the subject for another video. So what I want to do is get one arm on this side of the forearm, other hand on the other side. I want to put both hands on our opposite hand, on our opposite forearm to keep them pinned. And from here I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to lift my hips up. I want to try and get my left foot beside her head. From here I sit. I try to walk my feet in, so I've got one foot near her neck, other foot near her armpit. I squeeze my knees together, have my backside in nice and tight. When you first learn it, you'll find you'll have to make up the difference. You'll find you'll be all over the shop and you'll have to position yourself. But in the ideal world, when you get into the arm lock, you should be falling into the exactly right position. I try to have a thumb towards the roof or a palm towards the roof. I just pull this in nice and tight towards my stomach. That's usually sufficient to get the tap. If you are trying to apply more pressure, you can lift your hips up, but 9 times out of 10 that's not required with the training. So again, her arms extended, one arm either side. I try to land in position so that I don't have to muck around with my feet, my hips. I try to land right into the submission as soon as my back hits the floor. So I look more like this. So I'm getting the tap immediately as soon as my back hits the ground. Okay? The next one is from the guard. So the first one's a figure 4. So from here, what I want to do is get both of the hands on the floor to start with. You can do that a couple of different ways. It helps if you bring your knees towards your chest as I get the wrists off my hips. Hand on the inside, I plant my feet on the floor. I slide back, reach over. I try to get my chest touching a bicep. I catch my own wrist here, fall back. I try to get my guard back to secure the position. I get this arm at the same configuration I had before, except it's upside down. So you have a 90 degree angle at the shoulder, 90 degree angle at the elbow, and from here I'm just going to gently push her wrist this way. We'll do it from the side on. So starting from the guard, we get our hands on the floor, feet flat, slide back, we sit up, reach over, grab your own wrist, fall back, into guard, get the right structure, the right angles, and then gently push. Okay? Sometimes you can do that one without even getting their hands on the floor or without even putting your feet on the floor. So sometimes you can do like a sit-up, reach over and get the lock, but that requires a little bit of flexibility and all the rest of it. Okay, the last one is the straight arm lock from the guard. So from here I'm controlling the wrist and the elbow. Again, there's lots of different ways to set this up, but the way we're going to do it here, right hand on the wrist, left hand on the elbow, right foot on the hip. My goal here is to get 90 degrees to Siobhan. So from here I'm going to push on the hip, I pivot 90 degrees, chop down with my left leg. So I'm using my left leg here to squash her down. Right leg goes over the top of the head. I point the flats of my feet towards the floor, and I slowly lift my hips up to get the submission. We'll do this one from side on. Actually, we'll do it this way. So we start by controlling the wrist and the elbow. Foot on the hip. So I use this here to pivot myself off. So I pivot 90 degrees and chop down with my left leg. Right leg goes over the top, so both my feet point towards the floor and slowly lift the hips for the submission. Okay, one more. So we go wrist and elbow, foot on the hip, pivot, chop, right leg over the top and lift. That's it. Thanks, Siobhan.